Family, friends, fans, and foes, it's coming to the back end of 2022. Have you felt like this year has been on autopilot again? Maybe actually living your life to the fullest in its fullest potential. We're going to be dropping some tools, tips, and tricks tonight on it. Real Men Real Talk Live, where we take an inventory of your year 2022. Well, welcome back, my brothers and sisters. I'm coming in live from across the other side of the pond tonight, but we're going to do a quick introduction as always. Unfortunately, though, our brother, the host with the most, Jay the Roth man, is a little bit crook just before air. So the brothers and I, we're going to take over the gears. Be patient with us tonight, and we're going to be diving in deep, taking an inventory for year 2022. Over in the top echelon tonight, Mr. Jeff Fonsano. How are we going over there, my brother?
Trying to stay warm here in chilly Nashville. Going down to the 20s tonight.
Ooh,
But I think the show is going to warm everybody up.
Ooh, I like
the
that,
the energy of the show will warm everybody up out there.
Don't
Exactly.
we know that, my brother? Don't we know that? Down in the bottom echelon, but not the least, as always, Mr. Josh Richer. How are you, my brother?
Doing well. Coming in from Colorado, visiting mom this week. So here we are. Cold as well, Jeff. My flip-flops already miss me back home. So
there you go.
Well, let's get into it, my brothers. I'll try and help you warm it up a little bit. As I was just mentioning to the brothers in the green room before the show, we're on about Fahrenheit, about 89, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Your local degrees Celsius here, 30 degrees.
Ooh.
So it's starting to heat up here in the land down under, and we'll try and warm it up tonight. And unfortunately, like I mentioned, we're going to be missing our brother. But as always, here in spirit, we're thinking about you, Jay the Roth man. So I'm going to ask Mr. Josh Richer to drop in tonight and just give us a little bit of a deep dive and intro about what we're speaking about, my brother.
So yeah, tonight, the personal audit.
Personal
it started
audit.
for me basically, when was it? I guess it was a week and a half ago. And I started to really question, like, I know my old pattern well. I think a lot of us do as we're on our healing journey. And that old pattern is as we start to transition into we start thinking new thoughts, we start having new patterns in our lives, we start choosing outcomes rather than those automated tapes playing and us just sort of being, asleep at the wheel. Or even worse, somebody else's choices are at the wheel for us, whether they be past stories that were handed down to us by parents, grandparents, whatever. So I decided, I was like, I've gone through a ton of growth this year. Deeper levels of boundaries again, deeper levels of self-love, acceptance, advocating for myself, turning down jobs, not making decisions from a fear place, from that child scared place, based on whatever stories are driving that child's fear, but from this adult place where, like, I've got me and I'm okay now. And so a lot of my decisions have changed in the past 8 months considerably. And so I wanted to take an audit, like, am I clean? Are the people, places, and things in my life right now of my choosing and of my design, and not some old story from wounding or from lack or from fear? And so that's what started the audit for me. And then when I brought it up in our production meeting, Jeff, as we so often are, my friend, parallel on our journey. And Jeff was like, I'm going through the same damn thing right now too. And so, yeah, we were like, this is going to be the episode this week, the personal audit. And it's the perfect time, if you think about it, is we're closing out a year, as Ev said. We're coming to the end. There's this rebirth, right, into the new year, setting goals. And, I know we can all look down upon, sort of the setting of New Year's resolutions. However, I think there is sort of this natural transition for us as humans as we enter into this new year to be considering what we want, what we truly want, free of fear, free of stories, tapes playing that we're tired of. So it is the perfect time to take an audit and say, what do you want?
Love that, brother. I love that. Before we keep going, guys, I just want to thank all of our viewers starting to come in as well. We missed you guys last week. And, we thank you for being patient with us again. And just drop it down in the comments for us, where you're coming in from tonight, my brothers and sisters. And any questions you've got for the brothers out here tonight as well, drop them down in the comments. Let's make this a little bit of a discussion.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
I love what you're saying there, brother. Particularly around that audit side of things. When I thought of that word when you guys were telling me just before the show, here I am thinking about, taking stock and inventory, which I really do daily. And I really do encourage a lot of my clients to try and do daily. That way for me, coming into the back end of the year, like in the old days when I was in the retail, if I was taking stock, man, there was a massive load. You had to do it for days.
Sure.
So one of those consistent things throughout the year, you make it a part of your lifestyle. For me personally, it helps me with my self-awareness. But I'd like to hear what you've got to say about it, Jeff Fonsano.
Yeah, when Josh brought it up yesterday in our production meeting, it immediately resonated for me because I'm doing that, and I'm also doing it on a daily basis as well. It's almost a retraining. It's a retraining to look at what is in my life, where I am in my life at the end of each day. What choices have I made today that served me? And as Josh said, am I making these choices out of an old program, fear, or am I making these choices from a conscious place, an adult place that serves me now, serves me where I am? And even in that, if we're looking at that and say, wow, did this choice that I made today serve me? Then you're moving through a greater depth of loving, honoring, and valuing yourself. And that's what it's all about. So yeah, I'm going through and doing the same thing. I'm looking at my choices. I'm predominantly looking at my choices. And what choices am I making now? What choices am I making for me personally, for me professionally? Where am I moving towards that best serve me, that allow me to stand in my powerfulness? But the key, one of the things that I've really learned lately is that every single moment we're making choices. Whether we know it or not, we're making a choice. We're making a choice to, if feelings surface or a situation happens and we are triggered by a situation, we are triggered by somebody, in that moment, we can either react to it or respond to it. And by responding, we're making a choice. So by doing that and looking at that, looking at each day, what choices did I make today that served me? What choices did I make today? Even at the end of your day, what choices did I make today? Where did I stand in my power? Were those choices reacting? So it's really a wonderful time to reflect on all of this, reflect on our lives. And what I'm also doing, and I mentioned this to Josh in yesterday, is that I'm reflecting upon the relationships that are in my life that champion my highest good, that serve me, where there's a balance of giving and receiving. And am I nurturing those relationships?
Boom.
Or maybe am I still looking at relationships that I'm chasing for all of that? And that's where I'm spending my time. So a wonderful thing that I've been doing is I've been looking at my relationships with these guys and with other people, going, wow, have I spent enough time nurturing the relationships that nurture me?
Beautiful awareness, Jeff.
Love it, Jeff. I love what Julian's saying. Continuously mini auditing. It's all encompassed in awareness, presence, and yes, now for the big review, end of the year. Love it, sister. And yeah, 100%, brother. Like when we talk about relationships a lot on a Real Men Real Talk Live. I think for those people out there, though, what do you suggest, Josh? Like when I talk about autopilot, some of these brothers and sisters, man, they've got big families. They've got jobs. They're 9 to 5. How do they find this time to do this personal audit or the big review, like Jillian's saying?
Yeah. Time. Time. The thing is, we have time. I'll put it in the I form. I just chose to not make the best use of my time and blame it on work, stress, people, places, other things. If it's important to you, you'll do it. And you'll find time for it. And I think about what you have to sacrifice or what you are sacrificing by showing up in autopilot. I wrote myself a letter last Tuesday, or actually I wrote a letter to my old self. And it just flowed out of me during this process. And it was pretty angry, actually. And I thought, wow, I should be loving this part of myself. And I'm like spewing in this letter to myself, you were only serving your own needs, which were out of lack, out of this. I was like, you made every decision that I ever lived to regret was from that place and that person. And I went through this whole letter. I wasn't blaming, how I was just finally getting out my anger for betraying myself. What it was, when I ended this letter, it felt like I had deeply betrayed the Josh that just wants to live and be myself. And I betrayed him for acceptance. And I betrayed him for what I thought was love. And I betrayed that pure Josh for all sorts of things that were serving needs. I was on autopilot. So think if you are debating whether you have the time to do an audit like this, think of the person who has the wheel right now is betraying you. The true you and what you want and your desires. The autopilot is running the show. So the cost of that for another day, another week, another year of your life is huge. And now I say all this because I shared that I was really angry at this person who was actually myself. At the end of this letter, I came to love, because that person is me. And true wholeness is loving all our parts, including our wounding and our stories and the scared self that took the wheel for all those years and was on autopilot, just feverishly going through life trying to get love and acceptance and please love me, love me. I'll do anything. I'll abandon myself if you love me. this was the guy that was running the show for up until this year. So do I hate him? No, he's me. Do I love him? Yeah, he was so strong and did so much for me, so much to protect us. Does he need to have the wheel anymore? I got us now.
Yeah.
I can protect us from a loving place and not from a place of lack. And so, yeah, it's tough. I really wanted to hate this guy, but that's not healing. Healing is coming home to all of our parts and loving all of ourselves, including the scared, hurt, the ugly, the nasty, the dirty, and the awkward. We're all those things. So that's where I sit tonight with it. I don't know, Jeff. That's
powerful. Before you go in there, Jeff, I love what Jason, Dark and Young Country, brother, not too far from here, up in the Wabakal country. He says you've got to make time for the things that you value. And I totally agree with my brother on that one, because you think, my brothers and sisters, one thing we do have on this planet, and I've said this in a few shows, is an amplified amount of energy at the moment. The energy on this planet is out of control. But we are limited to the time we have here. So it's never a question, do I have time? You make time. Sorry, Jeff. Go in there, brother.
I agree with Jason. I agree with you, Ev. I mean,
did you get angry at yourself, Jeff, through this process?
No. What I've been doing is I'm taking this wonderful mindful self-compassion course right now, which popped up in my life through a friend, and it has literally changed my life. The tools, it's a wonderful reprogramming of how we treat ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, listening to that loop that's going around in our head, that constant critic that's always been there. So one of the assignments that we have was to write a letter to ourselves. And I've done, I imagine we've all done that. Most of the people watching the show go, oh yeah, I've done that. But, and of course I've done that in various different ways, but this one was different. I don't know where a lot of it came from, or what voices, or what was, who was talking, but it was, and believe me, it really, it somehow, when I read the letter back to me, and I read it every single night before I go to bed, because it was a letter of compassion and praise, and it wasn't critical of myself. And it almost was a letter that I was channeling from my father, of all the things he might have wanted to say to me.
Whoa.
Because as I read it, it's all the things that I had wished, or not me, the adult, my wounded little boys had always wished Dad and said to me, and Mom. And somehow when I sat down and wrote that letter, all that was happening was my hand was moving. And what was coming through was a lot of wonderful praise, compassion, and nurturing for myself, acknowledgments for myself. And it was very loving. Maybe that was just part of the class, but it wasn't critical. And it was with a lot of self-compassion in that letter. And when I finished it, I read it and I said, wow. And then immediately Dad came in, and I'm like, man, quite possibly Dad's on the other side, and freely now, without his encumbered wounding and conditioning and programming, perhaps wanted to say all of this. I don't know. So the point is, I read it every morning and every night because it's helping me to reprogram and cultivate a new compassionate voice that will override that constant critic in my head of you're not good enough, you're not doing this, not in capital letters. So that's one of the things that happened recently for me, that and that's really cool. And what we can do in this audit and looking at what is going on in our life, be conscious when that internal critical voice comes in. Because you can look at where you are now, where am I right now? And you ask yourself that question, and then look at what transpired this year, or just transpired in the month of October recently, and do it in a compassionate way and ask yourself, well, I made these choices this year. Oh, wow, they weren't the most mindful choices, perhaps. They weren't the choices that may have served me ultimately if you choose to learn from them, because everything is a choice. You can go back and say in a compassionate way, wow, what can I learn from all of these choices that I made this year? Even the wonderful choices that did serve us, because then that will simply show you all your growth throughout the year.
Yeah, I love that, Jeff. Thanks for sharing that, brother. It's such a big one, Shannon mentions there she loves writing. That head and heart to hand to paper just works for me. And I don't think there's many other tools out there can be as strong as simply being able to journal some of these things in our lives that may have been running havoc on autopilot for many years. I mean, you're even talking generations. So being able to journal for me would be definitely number one in your daily auditory, brothers and sisters. Josh, what about you? Some of those tools, I mean, you've been on a deep self-realization journey this year, as all of us have. Jeff's just, cracked a beautiful one there. What are some of the other ones? I mean, you're talking about, being able to speak to that future self, going back to those past events, and also, which is important to that present moment. What are some of the other ones that you could share with some of our viewers?
Well, before we come to the tools part of it, I'm still stuck with a couple of things, and I'm going to ask you guys. I want to pitch the forum. So that letter to myself, I was clearly angry and bitter at the things that self had cost me. Now, I know that energy is not helpful. I know it's low energy, and I know that I am not a victim. Those were choices I made from a hurt place, a child self of mine. However, it felt really good in the moment to be mad at that little fucker for a while and and just get it out. I almost needed to pull back the curtain and just see. It was almost like in the Wizard of Oz, when they pull back the curtain and realize that it's the guy back there on the organs, and that it isn't this big scary thing. And I just had to get mad at it for a little bit. So I guess my first question is is that helpful in healing? I mean, I get it. When we have a breakup, we go through different phases of anger and this and resentment, and then we get into grief and all this stuff. Am I just going through a process of that where I'm feeling this anger? And I know that I ultimately love this part of myself. I just had to get mad at him for a little while. It felt good to write that down. So what's you guys' experience on that?
Yeah,
what do you think, Ed?
I get angry every day, but I acknowledge it and I send it nothing but love. And my daily auditory helps me. I ask the questions, okay, is this my anger? where did it come from?
Mm.
You know, we think we're our emotions. We're not.
Mm-mm.
We think we're our thoughts. We're not.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get that deep self-awareness about that true existence of our infinite being and who we are, you actually have fun with some of these things like our emotions, thoughts, and feelings. But if I do see that anger on a consistent pattern, repetitive pattern,
Sure.
then in my self-auditory and my stock take, I'm going to check into that and I'm going to take a deeper look.
There's something there. Yeah, exactly.
What
Okay,
about you, Jeff?
Second part though. Oh wait, yeah, Jeff, answer that. Answer the anger part.
You know what came to me? It's like, okay, who is writing that letter?
Mm.
Ooh.
It was
Big one,
present
Jeff.
day me.
Was it present day you, or was it a present or a wounded child who wanted to speak out to someone? No.
It was totally present day me.
Okay. And then my question would be, say, because you're not that person anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What popped in is like, okay, are you in that letter? Are you angry at the person who made all of those choices, who is not you anymore?
Good point. But he is me because I have to love that part. So here, wait, and that kind of ties into my second question for you guys. So forgiveness. This hit me a couple of weeks ago after a meditation, and I shared it with Pamela, is forgiveness really something we can give someone else? So by Jeff, you went through something in life, maybe I'm making up an example. You went through something in life and you ended up causing me some pain and I blamed you for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I come and I want to forgive Jeff for doing X, Y, and Z to me. Well, all right, here's where I'm going to challenge everybody on forgiveness, because forgiving means that Jeff did something on purpose to hurt Josh. And I now need to give Jeff forgiveness. Jeff was just living his life, going throughout his life in his stories, tapes, and woundings, whatever. And again, nothing happened. I'm not saying an actual story happened and Jeff did anything to me. But do you get the point? It's like, so the same thing applies to this past version of me, right? So my next step after sort of I had my anger vent, I was like, my thought brain was like, oh, now I need to forgive past Josh and love him. And I was like, but do I really need to forgive past Josh? He was just in survival and doing his thing. He didn't mean to harm me or hurt what I really want to do in life. He was just being hurt. So there's nothing to forgive. I just need to love him.
Mm-hmm.
Love
So that's,
that, though.
I guess
Yeah.
that's where my part two question came in. Do we really need to forgive anyone? Because that's kind of a victim statement.
Well, here, take this one, brothers.
Go.
Remember,
I mean, okay, so
forgiveness
I remember,
is never about the other person. And we've mentioned this show after show, even in the show I think we did about forgiveness. So if you think about forgiveness is all about how you are in that interaction, whether it is someone, person, place, or thing outside of yourself, it's never about so-called letting people off, but it's about being able to let go of the pain that is holding you back from where you want to be.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When we think about it, we're the ones who hold the key to forgiveness.
Yeah.
There you go, brother.
It's not the other person at all.
Right. Josh, when you look at it that's why I brought up, you're in a place where you are now. You're not that person like I'm not that person who I was like back in October, for God's sakes. And what I've learned from stuff that happened in my life, even in October, or what happened when I lived in Los Angeles for 5 years. The way the person who was making choices when I lived in Los Angeles for 5 years is not the person I am now.
Mhm.
So that is what's really wonderful about doing an audit. Wow, I made these choices back in April. And if I'm continually wanting to learn more about myself and grow deeper and release the wounding and continue to raise my conscious and awareness to myself, which is a daily practice. And now it is November, and I look back at some of the choices I made in April, and not every choice, but maybe some critical or really important moments in our life.
Mhm.
Who was I? Where was I when I made those choices? Wow. Here I am now. So I could look at now almost, 5, 6, 7 years ago at some of these choices and decisions that I made when I lived in Los Angeles. And I am not that person any longer. But what could linger is me beating myself up over making those choices,
Sure. Yeah.
which is an old program and old conditioning. So what I'm leading to is the way I look at forgiveness, I begin with compassion. Being compassionate now to that person who made those choices 5 years ago, 4 months ago, an hour ago, and say, where am I now? And wow, can I have compassion for where I was? Because as Jay would put it, I only know what I didn't know. And now I know what I know that I didn't know when I was making those choices, because I've raised my awareness and consciousness to loving, honoring, and valuing and making choices that best serve me now, because I have grown in a deeper self-awareness of myself. 5, 6, 7 years ago when I was living in LA, I didn't have the awareness of myself now then that I have now. And I wouldn't make those choices out of living in a deep survival victim consciousness, that every choice I made was all about surviving life. Every choice that I made back then was about surviving life, just having enough to survive life on whatever level that is. And I made those choices in that limited self-awareness. And I don't make those choices anymore. So when I look back, I went, wow, wow. But I'm also going back and looking at the relationships that I had back then that I still have now, who were supporting and guiding me, even in that old Jeff place, who are still around. And that brings you to another place of the people who are there supporting you no matter where you are.
Love that, brother. Love that. So important, my man. And you're talking about those brothers and sisters, whether they were or whether they were not supporting us back then. How can someone out there watching tonight, or when they watch this particular production, make a good auditory on those people around them that's going to align, obviously, to their truth, to their goals, to their desires coming into 2023? What's a couple of tools, Josh, that you could share?
Lately,
Because it's so. Sorry, you go, brother. You go.
lately I've been asking myself, is this for me?
Mm.
Like, is it, if it's a decision because I'm afraid I'm running low on money, so I'm going to take this gig or this job, but I ask myself in the moment, do I really want it? Like, that job is with people I don't like, or if the money was out of the picture, would I take the job? And the answer is hell no. Well, then there's my answer. So really checking in, and maybe this is kind of what you mean by your daily audit, Ev. It's like checking in with everything. Does this resonate with my heart? Does this make me feel good? Is this life affirming? Is this Josh affirming? Or is this because I think I have to, I need to, based on some old story of lack, or trying to get love, attention, affection, admiration, joy through negative means, or through just not clean, so yeah, I think it is now for me checking in with every decision and saying, where's this coming from? And is this what I want?
Yeah. What do you think about that, Ev?
No, I love what you're saying there, brother. And, one of the hardest things for me, man, I'm going to be vulnerable here, was actually receiving feedback from other people, where I was in my life. For many years, the ego was driving my vehicle. There's no doubt about it when I do my self-reflection. And, being open to receive that feedback has been so, so special for me the last couple of years. And I had to really dig deep to ask myself, who were those people in my circle that I could trust to give me that particular constructive feedback? So again, I had to circle back to my values, brothers and sisters. Those people that I would ask for my feedback are those people that align with my values, those core values. Because some of those people closest to us, and we've done this in plenty of shows, my brothers and sisters, they may not be on the same path as you are while you take this stock in this auditory.
Yeah.
They may be just trying to give you particular feedback based on where they are within their life. So for me, it was doing the circle back to the values. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's if you can make a list of your values, and if we and that actually was an assignment in this great class that I'm taking, is in the class, it's like, write down, what are your values? And those values are wonderful to have, to ask yourself, am I fulfilling those values? And then, if these are my values, what relationships am I in where those values are being mirrored back to me, like Ev just said?
Yeah, exactly, man.
And that I think our values are a foundation, a guidepost of how we form relationships.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It really needs to be at the centerpiece of our being. There's no doubt about that. I actually just jumped on the show pretty hot myself tonight, and I'd come from a school opening where they were celebrating. It was actually a Catholic school. And what I love going into some of these schools is I sit in the waiting room at reception, at admin, and I always have a look at their values of the schools. And it's just one of those things that I really love listening to. And then just being a guest in that audience this morning, being able to be in that energy, I could feel those values with the teachers in that particular room, with the principal that was speaking, with the students that were singing. There was such a beautiful loving value within their school, which was obviously one of the values that they had at the centerpiece of the base, of the foundation. So you're right, Jeff. It's really coming back, aligning back to those values. But the other one as well, Josh, which I'll get you to answer too, because we've done shows on this as well, man. Beliefs. You know, we're coming into 2023, man. I keep saying 2020, we should have been 2020 vision by now, brothers and sisters. 21, we were getting asked, are we going to be the one? 22, I'm asking if it's going to be you. 23, we've got to be asking, is it still all about me, or is it finally going to be about we? So
22, I got some shit on my shoe during that one. So, you know, time out.
22, shit on my shoe. I like that.
Time out to clean that up, but 23 is all about me and what I want. Yep.
I love that. Love that, brother.
Well, I think 23 would be, it's about me, but it's not about the narcissism of me.
No, not at all.
It's not about everything's about me, but now I'm taking me into account in all my choices.
Stating your needs, expressing them, boundaries. These are all ways of standing up for, as the adult self, showing up and taking the wheel from the child who is recklessly driving and just trying to get love and acceptance. It's like, when it's all about me, we're talking about boundaries. We're talking about stating our needs. We're talking about being clear with our values. We're talking about pushing out people, places, and things that aren't in alignment with those values anymore, not wasting our energy, protecting that energy that we have, focusing our energy in supportive ways and not unsupportive ways, letting go of victim stories, moving into our true wants, needs, and desires, and focusing our energy there.
Look at that by the man himself. It's all about taking care of me in 23.
Oh,
Mr. J. the Rock, man. But
from the house, he's yelling from the back. I love it.
Exactly. And Jillian Valley says, the sister, if 2023 is all about the true me, then it's also inclusive of the we. I love that.
Ooh, good one, Jillian.
That.
You know, when we, and we've said it a million times, and I'm probably preaching to the choir with this, but when we really move in and take care of the me with compassion, with love, honoring and valuing ourselves, it's then, and then when we move out of the concepts of that and move into our heart with it, and realize that is what this is all about, then we can look at the we and do the same thing. And I know we've talked about that so many times. It's a wonderful concept. It's why we do the inner work, because the only way we get to actually be authentic and real in the we is if we're authentic and real with ourselves and we've worked on ourselves. Everything else to me is lip service. Everything else to me is concept. I think 23 would be a good test is, am I walking my talk?
Yep.
And I know that through a big part of my life that I was in my conceptual mind with everything, but was I truly practicing those concepts in my heart space? More likely, to a certain extent, yes, but also to a greater extent, probably no. And now I'm starting to move in deeper in my heart space to move in with a more compassionate self, so I can be more compassionate and understanding to those outside of myself when stuff's going on. And that only begins with us. And that we've done how many? What show is this now? 128.
128 tonight, brothers.
We've done 128 shows and probably talked about that, 127 times. And but I've come to learn in the last bunch of months where I have been living in my conceptual mind and now ready to open my heart, allow myself to really feel vulnerable and invite love in instead of fighting it and creating fights with it, not physical fights but an energetic fight with that.
Love that, brother. Love that. Because it all is, isn't it? You've got to start looking at the energy blueprint before we even change that physical. I was actually doing a workshop yesterday on super smoothies, super food smoothies. And I think it's important, even if we dovetail on the back end. Can you believe it's coming at the back end of the show? But taking that daily inventory of our health, brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Are we taking our daily vitals? Are we moving enough? You guys are coming into your winter over there. Are you still going to be moving enough through winter so you don't have to have the seasonal summer transformation? Are we taking our vitals in an inventory of the stock take of the food we're consuming still? It's an epidemic. Food itself. I was sharing some of those superfood smoothies with the brothers and sisters there yesterday, and they just loved the taste. And this was just raw food, man, into the blender, which most of us, we're pretty fortunate enough, we can just throw in. So when we can start looking after this body, that energy blueprint, we start to feel a little bit more clearer to possibly make the choices that we want to make the choices for to live this best life we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Ev, that is so important to. I mean, look back, folks. If you're gonna do, if you're gonna take us up on the personal audit, that look at what you're ingesting in your body. I mean, is the first thing you do in the morning is put that coffee pot on? Is that the first thing you do? How many cans of Pepsi do you consume during the day? Really look at what you're putting into your body, because that's just another part of loving, honoring, and valuing this vessel to keep it clean and cleansed so we can be our best selves on a physical basis. Because as Ev has spoken about and Jay so many times, what we put into our physical body, what we ingest in our physical body, is going to affect ourselves emotionally and mentally and spiritually.
Yes.
Just ask yourself, what am I ingesting?
Well, and it goes back to how we do anything is how we do everything, right?
Yeah.
If we're willing to, compromise on our health and ingest, and I'm not saying we have to be perfect. However, if a majority of our choices are for our health and well-being and support rather than taking away, that's a choice too. We're ultimately talking about choice, right? So that's in the audit as well. Absolutely, Ev and Jeff, you guys called it.
Yeah.
And that's not a small part.
Very important part of the auditory. That's 100%. Brothers, can you believe it? We've been flying tonight. I just want to acknowledge our brothers and sisters out there. And obviously, like I mentioned, our beautiful Jay the Roth man who couldn't make it, who's very active in the chat though. I just want to acknowledge Jason Newport. I said the brothers here, Dark and Young Country, not too far in the land down under. Miss Mary Kelly, of course. We've got Beverly and Ed out there. Hey, sister Shannon. We got Jillian
coming up
always back in the house from across the other side of the pond. Elizabeth. Wow, man. So we're coming in all around the world. Christopher packing back in the house too, my brother.
Nice.
So look, all of the guys have been beautiful and active out there tonight. I guess, coming into the back end of the show this evening, going into this 2023, we've dropped some bombs even from the basis of being over the last couple of years with some of the inventory tools that we've been using. What are some of the other ones? We've talked tonight, just going of a recap, we've talked about the journaling. We've talked about that future self, having that backtrack of where we've come from in the past to the now. I actually noticed Mary mentioned out there visualization. It's another powerful tool for taking an audit, which many of us don't talk about. But just giving you guys a couple of minutes as we come to the back end. What do you feel first, Jeff? A couple of other tools going into 2023.
Well, I saw Mary pop in with meditation.
Yeah.
I mean, meditation is so important. And there's so many ways to do that. It's not all about, I have to sit and be in total quiet and, and do that. But there's many different ways you can meditate. Because when we can maybe, if you want to, just take the word meditation out of it and give yourself quiet time with yourself. Just go within and just be quiet with yourself at certain times during the day. I do it in the morning. I even do it, if I need to be quiet in the middle of the day, if I'm working something, I'm starting to feel certain feelings like anxious or fear or whatever. I'll stop, I'll breathe, and I'll go within and center myself and ground myself in there. And whether you want to use the word meditation or quiet time with yourself, because it's in those moments that you can get centered and grounded with yourself, but also you just might get some wonderful aha moments that will come to you in even the 5 minutes that you might be quiet with yourself, the 10 minutes that you're quiet with yourself. If you could do 20 minutes, that's wonderful. Meditation is important because it allows yourself to go within and to take stock of where you are in that moment in your life. And then things will happen. One of the things in my meditation on Sunday was how I still try to control outcomes in my life. And it was in my morning meditation when I closed my eyes and I was feeling anxious. And then I just went in, I go, what am I feeling? What's this feeling? What's coming up? And then I'm feeling anxious. So I called it out and I allowed the energy to move. And then underneath it I heard, you're still trying to control outcomes in your life. So I can feel safe and secure. Because to me, that's what control is about. If I think I need to control everything, and if I know that I'm in control or think that I know that I'm in control, then I'll be safe and secure. So really what this little boy inside of me is seeking is safety and security. That was, I can elaborate more, but the point I'm making is that in my meditation this past Sunday, that came and I opened my, I went through and I went, wow, okay, now I need to go in deeper with that, and I'd like to shift that.
Beautiful, Jeff. I love that.
Beautiful, deep self-awareness there, brother.
Yeah.
Big, deep self-awareness. And you're 100%, man. Like, for our brothers and sisters out here, I know we've got a pretty tight community and we talk a lot about meditation. I don't think there is really anything as important of being able to do that little bit of daily practice of meditation. Now, look, we're not always just talking about meditation being wrapped up in the lotus position.
Exactly.
Now, sometimes meditation for me is just sitting by myself. I might even have my eyes open. I'm not looking around necessarily, but I might be just sitting in that stillness, in that calmness, and in that patience. And like Jeff's saying, that is when we can start taking stock and inventory, because some of those things will just start to come to the surface. And funnily enough, that's your subconscious speaking to you, brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, brother. Josh,
Beautiful.
what do you reckon, my brother?
What was the question again? Tips?
We're going into 2023. We'll probably do another show on the back end, I know, this year anyway. But we're talking about inventory tonight. Just coming in the back end of the show tonight, a couple of other maybe tools, tips, even start helping our brothers and sisters as we come into the back end of 2022.
I've been doing or attempting and seeking out. I've been seeking, we'll put it that way, for 20 years. And where I found the most joy, true peace, acceptance, self-love, peace. Where I finally found my peace was in this idea of loving all parts. When I did my shadow work 2 summers ago, that cracked everything wide open. I had studied for decades. And when I finally accepted all parts, the dirty, sticky, messy, weird, goofy, awkward, funny, sometimes stupid choices, when I accepted and loved all of that and said, that's me. And there was a lot of good and fun in there too. And then there's some weird stuff, and that's okay. So I think this week, as I'm taking this audit and discovering things that I'm like, wow, for most of my adult life, making choices from that place a year ago wasn't super supportive, but I love that guy too. And even though I went through my anger exercise, where my heart is truly called it back to, and what I know to be most successful in this journey of self, is that we're made up of a whole lot of parts, and we're not perfect, and we're on this journey, and we're learning, and that most of all is to do it with love and with acceptance. And that I spent a lifetime shaming those parts of myself that I wasn't proud of. Not only shaming, but trying to get rid of, eradicate, let go of, push down stuff, drink copious amounts of alcohol and forget that guy existed. But all of that only brought me to worse and darker places in life. And the more I tried to stuff that guy or those guys that made those maybe unsupportive choices, the worse my life got. So, I think my biggest thing I'm going to do through all of this, and maybe the biggest thing that I could share with anybody, is love all parts. Sometimes they make us do shitty things, and that's okay too, because we only knew what we knew, as Jeff and Jay say, and that's okay too. It's okay to uncover wounding and uncover stories, and it's a little harsh to see them for the first time and go, oh man, I did that, but it's okay.
My brother, Josh Richer, as Jay the Rothman always says, welcome home, brother. Welcome
it.
home, brother.
I
Beautiful, beautiful.
love you guys.
Right. What about you, Ev?
Yeah, man. I'm
What
going
are
to break
some-
it down. What's Jay the Rothman say at the end of a show?
I'm going to break it
I'm gonna
down for
break
you.
it down. I'll break it down Evers Heath style. One of the greatest destinations for me, my brothers and sisters, particularly this last 2 or 3 years, has been the journey of self-discovery. It really has. But I had to uncover those layers. I had to discover those layers through a self-auditory. But I could only do that with a clear vision. I could only do that with a clear destination. We always talk about we don't need to know the how we're going to get there, but we need to know why. And for me, one of the biggest questions is I'd be just simply asking yourself, brothers and sisters, what am I about down here on this planet while I'm here? Who am I about? What do I want to achieve? Is there something at the back end of 2022 that I do want to achieve? Is it to create a new habit or create a new healthy choice like we've discussed here tonight to align to some of these things that we're talking about? You know, what is it that works for me? What is it that slows me down? Have I just held on to too many people around me that are past their expiry date? Am I giving people, places, and things free access up here that are not allowing me to plant the seeds of this garden that I want to grow in 2023? You know, these are some of the questions we have to sit down with ourselves, my brothers and sisters, because otherwise we go into next year and we keep being the same person, doing the same things, maybe getting the same results. So ask yourself after this show tonight, my brothers and sisters, what's your guiding light? What is your goal? What is your intention to finish up this year of 2022? And I know we're going to do another show as we come into probably the end of December, but we're talking about self-auditory tonight. And like I mentioned, I don't think any other destination on this planet is any more special than that destination of self-discovery, accessed by the power of self-love.
Boom.
So on that note, my brothers and sisters, how do you reckon we done out there tonight? What do you reckon, brothers? Did we hold the ship for our man?
I think we did.
Without doing the show without our fearless leader tonight.
We love you, Jay. We hope you're feeling okay, my friend.
Yeah, folks, everybody out there who's listening, watching, who's going to be watching on Roku, on Bloom Wellness channel, on Roku, on Amazon. Anybody's going to be watching the replay. Send some loving, light, healing, beautiful, caring, compassionate energy to our fearless leader, Jay Rothman.
Yeah.
Get that mass white light of healing energy and let it descend upon Mr. Rothman.
I love that one.
Yes, and he will. Thank you,
so much
Jay.
love out there in the chat tonight, my brothers and sisters. And we missed you again, Jay. Love all you brothers and sisters. We look forward to seeing you next week on 129. Real Men, Real Talk, live. Brothers, boom!
We're still live. We're still live. Everyone,
still
welcome to the post show.
We were too.
Are we